Welcome back. So happy to see you here for a second edition of You Create Yours Quick Class. We're going to move on from the basics and get a little more advanced in today's lesson. Today we're going to focus on formatting and organizing your sheet. By the end of this quick class, you're going to be able to do a number of useful things. You're going to be able to pick the font that you want to use and manipulate various aspects of that font, from the type, the size, the color, the style, and even some effects. We'll move on there and look at how we can adjust the width of our columns and the height of our rows. Then we'll look at the merge and center function, a very useful thing if we want to make a title that spans the table that we're making. We'll also look at how to stack text within a cell with the wrap text option. We're going to learn how to change the cell formatting and the alignment within the cell. We'll also demonstrate how to use the freeze panes functionality. A quick look at the painter tool and what we can do with that. We'll also look at how we can utilize the print preview, which will allow us ultimately to see print lines. And we'll also look at how to set the size of our page and the orientation. So let's dive right in. Well, as you can see, we've been quite busy with our shopping since the last time we met. I've entered a bunch of data. Now don't get too worried. I've provided the data for you. If you look below the video in the information, there's a link where you can download this data set, Christmas list data. Take a moment and download this data, open the file, and then we'll get started. Well, now that you've downloaded and opened your practice file, let's take a look at what we can do in order to format this sheet. Let's start with the font. Take a look on the ribbon and you will discover a group called Font. Perhaps you're not interested in the default Calibri. No problem. What we can do, since we want all of the font to be changed, is highlight the columns that we want to change. Then you can come up here to the font group on the ribbon, click the arrow, and you'll see that you get a drop-down menu that shows you several fonts that you have available to you. Notice as you go over these fonts, some of them will give you a preview as to what they look like. I want to select Arial. I click it, and immediately all of these are converted to Arial. Now, I'm going to take a look at my titles. I want the headings for each of my columns to stand out. As a result, I'm going to come up to the font group and select bold, and you can see that they stand out because they are become bold. There are other options available to you. You could italicize these. You could underline them. Now, I don't want either of those two options. I simply want bold, so I'm going to eliminate those two options. Another thing that's available to us is size. Now, I want these to stay the same size, but let's explore what changing the size does. Again, a drop-down menu, and as you go over these sizes, notice it gives you a preview of what those sizes would look like. But again, I want to stay with where we're at with 11, so I'll select 11. Another option that we have available to us is we can change the color of the font. In the same grouping on the ribbon, we have this font color option. We can click the arrow that brings down some basic standard options for us. If those are not exactly what you want, you have the option to go more colors, but for now we're just going to look here in the theme colors and the standard colors. And you can see that as I mouse over them, it does give me a preview of what those colors will look like. I want to keep it as black, so I'm just going to leave it at automatic. If you want to align text, take a look in the ribbon, and you will find the group called Alignment, which has many options for us for aligning our text. There's a few things I see here that I want to align. Gift number, for example. I selected the whole column because I want everything in that column to be centered. I select the column, I come up to the alignment group, click center, and automatically everything is centered. I want to do the same thing to my dates, so I select the column that has my dates, hit centered. I'm going to leave gifts, recipients, and stores left justified. But I do want to center my prices, so I'll select that column as well and select Center on the alignment group in the ribbon. And they're all centered. Another adjustment that I want to make is to the price column. Since the price column represents money, I want it to display as money. So I'm going to go ahead and select that column and then take a look at the ribbon group called Number. There's a drop-down menu here, and you can see we have a couple aspects that seem applicable. Currency and accounting. Now you may say, well, what's the difference between the two? There's some subtle differences between the two. When you select currency, what's going to happen is the dollar symbol is going to appear directly to the left of the first digit in your value, and it's going to display negative numbers with a negative sign. If we select accounting, what's going to happen is the dollar symbol is going to appear at the left edge of the column, and when we have a negative number, it's going to appear in parentheses and not as a negative. Additionally, zero values will be displayed as a dash. I think for most of us, what we are used to is this aspect of currency. So I'm going to select currency, and you see here now I have the dollar signs all around. Looks good. Another aspect that we see here is you may be a little bothered because not all the text is visible. You see here Nerf ball is cut off. Many of these things are cut off. Now, there's different options that we can have. Maybe you want, for whatever reason, for the column width to stay as you have it set now. If you'd like the column width to stay the same, you can use this function called Wrap Text. I'm going to click it to show you what it does. Notice that when I hit Wrapped Text, the column width stayed unchanged, but what happened is the height of the row increased so that you could see the text wrapped within the cell. Now, you could select the column, click Wrap Text, and you see it does it for the entire list. This can be useful. Personally, I'm not interested in showing my data that way, so I'm going to get rid of that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust the column width myself. Now, there's a few different ways you can adjust the column width. Let's take a look at these ways. Come up here to column D. Take a look at the cursor. As I move the cursor over to the right, notice when I get to the edge of the column, my cursor changes its shape. When it changes to that shape on the edge, I can left click, hold, and drag this to the side, and when I let it go, looky there, it has adjusted the width of that column, and now I can see all of my text. Now that's one way to do it. An easier way, or a quicker way, that will format everything, what I typically do is I come up here, I'm going to select all of these columns B through G, click, hold, and move over until all columns are selected. Now I'm going to move to the edge of any cell, it doesn't matter, move to the edge of any of the cells, see that your cursor has changed shape, and then double click. And immediately all of the widths are adjusted so that all of your text is showing. That is a nice, quick way to adjust your column width. In a similar fashion, if you'd like to change the height of the rows, you can come over to any row. Notice that as you move to the edge of the row, the cursor changes shape. Click, hold, drag, and it changes the height of a row. This is coming along quite nicely. Another thing that I would like to do is I would like to add a title above this table that I'm generating. So in order to do that, I'm going to come over here to row 1. I'm going to highlight row 1. I'm going to come up to the ribbon, to the cells option, and click Insert. And when I click Insert, now I have inserted a row above the table that we've been generating. So I'm going to type a title here. Christmas Gifts 2021. Now that's not a very impressive display of that title. I mean, what I would really like is for it to be larger, to be bold, to be centered over the entire table, and maybe even fill that background in with a festive color. That's actually easy enough to do. To do that, to start this process, let's look at the wrap or the merge and center function. So I want to select B through G on my first row. I'm going to come up here and click merge and center. And notice what that has done now is that has converted all of those cells into one giant cell that spans from B to G, and it centered my text over the table. Now you know what to do now. You want the text to be larger? Well, click down on the font size. You can preview what you want. I think 24 looks good. You wanted that to be bold. Well, same thing in the font group. Click bold. If you want to change the color, remember you can come over here to font color. Maybe you want to give it a festive red color. And then I want to fill this background. So if you come up here to the font group, we have a fill color. You can click down on this arrow and see several options. And I think this green, one of these greens might be quite festive. I like the standard green here, so let's go with that. And voila! Now we have a nice title that is quite festive. Now for me, the text color, I'd prefer it to be black, so I'm going to go ahead and change that back to black. Now, one thing, remember, while we were able to adjust the column widths, we can also do the row height. So if you wanted that to span larger, you could. And if for some reason you wanted it to be centered in this, take a look up here at the alignment group. These three options here, if I click middle align, notice that it'll put it in the middle. I'm going to switch it back to where it was. I want to fit this to the text, so I'm going to go to my cursor changes, double click, and there we go. I think this is really starting to look quite nice. In formatting that title, we did a lot of clicks to make that happen. And let's say that you had a few other areas where you wanted to use exactly that same formatting, the background, the centered, the color of the text, so on and so forth. There's a quick way to reduce the number of clicks to use the same format. If you look up on the ribbon in the clipboard group, we notice this here, Format Painter. So let's say I want to duplicate the format that we had here. I highlight that cell, come over here, click Format Painter. Now any of the cells that I utilize will automatically be converted to that. Look, the size, the bolding, the centered, the background, all of that was done with just a very few clicks. Now I don't want this to be this way, so I'm going to go ahead and undo my changes and go back to the way we had it before. You know what? This looks so pretty. I think I'd like to print it, but I wonder if it'll fit on my 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. Well, let's take a look and see how this works out. The easiest way to take a look at this is to come up here and click on the File tab. And notice down here we have an option, Print. And when we do that, it generates a print preview. Now notice 4 pages, and I'll click through the pages. That's not formatted in a way that is going to look very nice on my 8.5 by 11 sheet. So one of the easiest ways to fix that would be to come over here to the scaling option. Right now there's no scaling. When I click that, you see I have a few options. I can fit everything on one sheet of paper, or I can shrink it down so all of the columns fit on one page, but it can spill over onto a second page with additional rows, or I can fit all rows on one page. What I'm going to do is go ahead and allow all columns on one page and allow it to spill over if it needs to. It's a lot of gifts, but it does fit on one page there quite nicely. I'm going to go ahead and remove the scaling back to where it was. Go back to our page. Now notice something, and it's kind of subtle. Look right here. You see that dotted gray line? That is showing us the boundaries of our 8.5 by 11 page. So see, that's where it cuts off and starts printing another page. If we scroll down, look here, the dotted gray line. This is the boundaries, the lower right corner of an 8.5/11 page. So you can format these to fit right with here, or see while you're editing after you do a print preview how these are going to fit on your page. Well, maybe you don't want to use 8.5/11 set as a portrait mode. Maybe you want to change it to landscape and see how that affects this. So let's take a look at that. Let's go up here and click on the Page Layout tab. And notice here we can look at the orientation. So I'll click that. It's currently set to portrait. I can change this to landscape. And notice when I changed it to landscape, this little gray dotted line changed over here. And in fact, now all of our columns will fit, but our rows will spill over onto a second page, which that's probably a pretty good layout. Let's take a look here. Let's go to File, Print, and look at that print preview. I think that looks pretty swell. Click there and you can see it spills over onto the second page. Again, remember, if you don't want it to spill over onto the second page, you can come here to Scaling, tell it to fit all rows on one page. No, actually, tell it to fit one sheet on one page, and everything is fit 1 through 46. Let's go back and take a look at what's going on. Well, we certainly have been busy purchasing Christmas gifts, and our children and grandchildren certainly have been well behaved. One aspect that I'm not too fond of with this list is take a look at what happens when I scroll. When I scroll down my list, it's so long that I lose my headings. And quite frankly, I don't want to forget what each of these rows means. So wouldn't it be nice if our headings could always stay on top? Well, you probably guessed it. I wouldn't have brought it up if it couldn't be done. So it can be done. One of the easiest ways is to use the Freeze Panes function. Now I want it to keep my title, and I want it to keep my headings. So I'm going to select the row below my headings. Then I'm going to come up to the ribbon and click on the View ribbon. And notice in the window groupings, I have an option, Freeze Panes. There's a few options here. Freeze Panes, that's going to freeze where I've asked it to freeze. If you want to just freeze the top row, you can click that, or freeze the first column, you can do that. I'm doing a custom freeze because I have both the title and my headings. I click Freeze Panes. Notice you get a light gray line through here. Now watch what happens as I scroll down. The title and the headings remain in place. And for me, that's something that is quite useful. As I was scrolling down through that list, I began to wonder, how equally distributed are all of these gifts? Also, I thought, what was the most expensive gift we bought, and what was the least expensive gift that we purchased? So it'd be nice if we could sort this list and get some of that basic information. So let's take a look at some options that we have. I'm going to select the data that we've entered. And I'm going to come to the Home tab. And I see an option here, Sort and Filter. I'm going to click that. Notice I have some quick options here. Sort smallest to largest, sort largest to smallest. Now this is useful, but one caveat to this is what this is going to do is it's going to sort by the first column in your data set. In this case, it's gift number, which doesn't really have much usefulness for us other than keeping track of the number of gifts we've bought. But let's see it work. Let's say it's already sorted by smallest to largest. Let's click Sort Largest to Smallest. Click, and immediately you see here now it is from the most recent gift we purchased down to the first gift we purchased. That doesn't give us a lot of control over the data, and it certainly doesn't allow us to answer the questions that we were pondering, like what is the most expensive gift, what was the least expensive gift. Let's come back up here to the Editing group on the Home ribbon. Let's click this, and let's go to Custom Sort. Now, notice we have checked here, my data has headers, and this is no longer highlighted, and that's wonderful because when we come here to sort by, drop down menu, it gives us our headings. So our first question was, what was the most expensive? What was the least expensive? So I'm going to sort by price, sort by on cell values. We'll leave that set there. And order, smallest to largest. Well, I want to see the largest first, so largest to smallest. I click OK, and whoa, Kevin must have been really good. He got the most expensive gift, a radio-controlled car that cost $385.39. Now I can scroll down and see the least expensive gift went to Derek. It was a barrel of monkeys that we spent, wow, what a bargain, $1.58. Well, let's get a little more complex with our sorting and filtering of our data. I'm going to come back here to Sort and Filter. Click on Custom Sort. This time, I'm interested in knowing who got gifts and what was the range of prices we spent on each person. So I'm going to go ahead and keep this here, but I'm going to modify this first sort by. I'm going to sort it by recipient, so it's sorted by the individuals. Alphabetical order is what I want, so I'm going to change this A to Z. Now, at this point, if I hit OK, it's going to sort the list by recipient in alphabetical order. But once it goes into recipient, I also want to know what was the most expensive gift for each person and what was the least expensive gift for each person. So I'm going to add another level. So first it's going to sort by recipient. Then I want it to sort by price. I want that price to go from largest to smallest. So I'm going to select that option. And now I'm going to click OK. It automatically switches or sorts the list. Alexander, notice it's by name, by alphabetical order. Alexander only got one gift. Amelia only got one gift. Bella received two gifts. The most expensive was $51.78, and the least expensive was $32.85. As we scroll down, we can see some people got a lot more gifts than others. Derek must have been really good. He got quite a few gifts, and they ranged in price from $91.54 all the way down to $1.58. Kevin made out as well. Check that out. His gifts ranged, we already knew this one, from $385.39 down to $4.88. Congratulations. That was excellent work you did today. And I am positive that all of your future Excel creations will be professional and dazzling. We hope you found today's lesson useful and enjoyable, and if you did, take a second, give us a like, and click that subscribe button to see what we have forthcoming. Additionally, we would love it if you took a look at our website, youcreateyours.com, and see what additional resources we have available. And of course, interact with us on our social media platforms. Never stop learning. Remember, it is your life, and you must own it, transform it, and create the success you desire. No one can do it for you. Go out and get it.